Hey, what's up? It's another episode of Film Streak. This one I'm on the run. I'm moving around. I'm actually recording this before or after. I'm taking a little break, going on a trip on my favorite rocket ship. Well, let's just get right to it. Come on. I'm watching new films. Sometimes they are new films in theaters. Sometimes they are new films to me. This one is a little bit of both. It's a new film that just hit streaming. I didn't see this in the theaters. The Fall Guy with Ryan Gosling, Emily Blunt. There's a lot about this film that I was excited about. I was anticipating. I was eager to understand and just watch how this film by director David Leitch, who of course has done a bunch of action films over the last, decade or so, starting with John Wick, or it might have even been something before that, but John Wick, was it the Hobbs and Shaw, Deadpool, Bullet Train? I feel like there's something else in there. Here's someone who started as a stuntman in the industry and stunt coordinator and moved himself up to director and is able to tell a lot of his own stories now that he's got some status or the position of being able to produce and direct his own films. And this is great. This is the kind of thing you like to see, right? Somebody who can bring maybe some new perspective, some new vision, and maybe a whole new skill set to that role. You have a lot of filmmakers who might come from the acting side, it might come from the writing side. And here we have someone who is bringing their expertise in the actual physical performance, the dangerous side of doing these types of films, especially action films. And so I wanted to see this film, not at all because it was based on loosely or otherwise the TV show from the 70s or 80s? I think it was the early 80s with Lee Majors. And that was a thing for me growing up. That was a show that I watched, and I thought it was such an interesting, fun premise that there's this Hollywood stuntman who also kind of does this, crime fighting, bounty hunting, whatever he was. He does that on the side and uses his skills at being a rough and tumble type of character to get the job done. And, I was kind of concerned, like, how's that going to work in a film? And is it going to have a similar tone or similar approach to this type of character, right? Unfortunately, or fortunately, I don't know, this film does its own thing entirely. It is part comedy, all action film, and a little bit of suspense and mystery and part spy film almost. And I don't really know if those things all match. And I think where it came down to for me was there are parts of this film where there's a lot of action going on. There are a lot of stunts, of course, but these are extended sequences of the film. And now if you watch the version that's on Peacock, or maybe it's even like on Blu-ray or whatever, there's an extended edition or extended cut of this film. And I got to say, I watched both cuts. Okay. I watched the extended one first thinking, I'm going to get a little more bang for my buck. Right. I don't really know, watching them both, I don't really know what the difference would have been now, because there are some sequences in this film that kind of drag on for a while. And I get, look, you want to showcase the work, show that these guys are really committed and they're doing some really off the wall stunts and all that. But especially there's this one sequence, I think around in the middle of the film or maybe later in the film, where it's a weird, like, cross-cutting between Emily Blunt doing karaoke and she's singing Phil Collins Against All Odds, which is a very specific tempo and type of song, cut against Ryan Gosling doing this like vehicle to vehicle fight scene, like a moving high speed fight scene. in like a pickup truck and then in a tow truck and then in this like, I don't know, like a garbage container or whatever it is that they're towing around. And it goes on so long. And the juxtaposition with the music, I get it. I get the idea. Sometimes that's really fun and it kind of puts a whole new spin on the song in particular. But this one, I just felt like that's really such a specific song. And especially if you're familiar with, that era and that movie that song came out with, you know that this is really just diametrically opposed, these two things. And I get that's the idea. But man, it really just goes on for a long time to the point where it kind of gets, I don't know if it's exhausting. It kind of gets annoying after a while. And some of it is played for laughs. Some of it is played for the tension and the suspense of it. But I don't know. I found that was a weird thing with this film is I felt like it wanted to be a comedy outright, but it also wanted to introduce us to some characters and elements of it that are kind of dangerous and mysterious. And we're supposed to take them serious, but you're trying to counter that with these, I don't know, moments of banter. And that's one thing I did like. There are moments between Ryan Gosling's character, Colt Seavers, same character from the TV show, and his stunt coordinator, Dan, who's played by Winston Duke, who here I think is just, he looks like he's having fun, and that's cool. And there are moments where they kind of trade or challenge each other with quotes from movies. And that's kind of fun. I mean, especially if you're that kind of person that sort of speaks in film speak or speaks with dialogue, I've done that occasionally. I still do that. Me and people I know, sometimes that's our shorthand, right? I think a lot of film enthusiasts or film nerds or whatever, I think that's what we do. So that was cool to kind of see that on film. And it establishes like these two guys really know each other that closely, But there are other moments of the film where when we have Tom Ryder, who is the quote unquote star of the film within the film, who's played by Aaron Taylor Johnson, he's into some really kind of questionable, kind of criminal things, right? And Colt Seavers is the guy that's got to track him down and figure out, hey, you're the star of the film. I'm your stunt double, but what is going on with you? What are you into? And there's a little bit of mystery involved, and there's some other like bad guys in the mix. And I just feel like that part of it, I couldn't really take serious. Like I always felt like this is kind of a cartoon now. I almost would have rather it just been about the film that they're making. What's it called? Like Metal Storm? I think that's the name. And it looks kind of like a weird like Mad Max / Dune knockoff, some kind of weird mashup or something. And that is fun. The idea of a film being about not just a film, like the making of a film, but the workings of a film production. If you're into it at all, I think this film really kind of tries to hone in on those aspects, like what interactions or relationships or just life on a set would possibly be like, I mean, this is, of course, in the film, this is like a giant production. These characters are not making like a small indie film. So this is maybe something that, it kind of gives you a glimpse of that world, right? But I just find the balance that this film is trying to draw, it never feels quite put together. It feels a little bit of this sometimes and a little bit of that sometimes. And I wish it would have maybe tied together a little better. The film that I think came to mind after watching it, after watching the extended cut the first time, that I felt like really nailed this balance. And look, it set the bar pretty high, is Tropic Thunder. It's about a film. It's a film about a fictional film with real actors playing fictional characters, right? It's all those layers of things, but it's also either giving you a sense of how film production works, but also poking fun at it at the same time, right? I think that film just checks all the boxes. That is for its time or for its genre, that is kind of the best execution of it to date. And I feel like this, I really thought it was going to be in that lane. I really thought it was going to be very similar to that. But this one, honestly, it kind of feels, strangely, it feels too safe, I think. And maybe that's because this film, unlike Tropic Thunder or some other films, this whole thing hinges on this like love story, this romance between the two main characters. And I don't know if I entirely buy that, and not because I don't like the actors. I like Emily Blunt, I like Ryan Gosling, and I feel like they've both done this kind of dynamic in other films before. But in this film, I think there's just so much going on, whether it's the other members of the fictional film crew, whether it's the other characters outside of the fictional film, whether it's, the actual dynamics between these real actors. There's so many layers to it. And I feel like none of it really gels. And it's not to say it can't be fun. It does have fun moments in it, but like I said, the tension of it just never really gets tightened, It doesn't feel like I'm actually on the edge of my seat wondering what's going to happen. It feels like at the end of the day, we kind of know everybody's going to be all right. So I think, unfortunately, that kind of diffuses a lot of what drives the story of this film. Like you kind of I think you're supposed to wonder, like, is this going to work? Is this character going to be successful? Are they going to survive? Whatever. You never really feel that, I don't think. So, I don't know. Maybe that's not the goal. This is a PG-13 rated film. It's not necessarily intended to be hard-hitting and dangerous in that sense. But I think that if you're making a film about stunt people, that profession, that industry, I think you have to have inherent danger in it. And I mean, even the very first stunt of the film, which is one that they used a lot in the marketing of it, was this record-breaking, actually record-setting car roll that they do on this beach. And, if you watch any of the behind the scenes or the, making of this film, you see like just doing that was a story in itself. And the way it plays out in the film, it's like kind of like one and done. It's easy breezy. Like this guy, he's such an expert. He's the stunt man and he pulls it off. And, and that actually makes me think. So look, that's the film itself. And I wanted to just talk about it for a little bit and give some impressions on it. But when I was watching this on Peacock, one of the things that also suggests to you is this, limited series called Action. And, that series is about 87 North itself, right? Which is the production company behind it. That's David Leitch. That's his team. And it goes into the history of it, but also the beginnings of it I think it was 8711, which was the stunt team that goes all the way back to, I think, the days of like The Matrix and Fight Club when David Leitch started working as Brad Pitt's stunt double and doing other films throughout the years, right? The series is a docu-series, and it starts with the production of Violent Night, which I talked about, I think, last year in the podcast. And that was a film that, I thought the premise was kind of fun and kind of different. Honestly, I feel like the movie itself, it was kind of okay. It was kind of right down the middle. But this docuseries at least goes into the work behind the stunts in that film. And that is a film that has some pretty intense action in it. So you get to see here, like the actual stunt team, the coordination of it, and even the aspect of producing a film like that in close quarters, in proximity of each other during COVID, right? And how that presented some setbacks. And so it's good to have stuff like this because I think it's one thing to know how a film is made, but stunts, I feel like, have been kind of the stepchild of the film industry. It's like they know that stunts are needed and stunt performers are needed, but we don't always really know who they are and how hard they have to work to make some of this stuff happen and be safe, of course. So that was a pretty interesting docuseries. it starts with Violent Night, and then, I don't know, a few episodes in, that film is wrapped, and then it switches over into the beginnings and in the production of The Fall Guy. And so you see a lot of behind the scenes of making some of these stunts work, and not only, the design of the stunts and the actual execution of the stunts, but you get to know the different types of performers. It's not just like there's one stunt man for one actor. I mean, in The Fall Guy itself, Ryan Gosling, I think he has like 5 or 6 stunt doubles, right? They all have their own specialties. Some are good with cars, some are good with fights, some are good with, like weapons or like different types of things that they specialize in. And I think that's something, honestly, I didn't know. As much as I feel like I know about like film production and filmmaking, stunt performers, like I said, they're just kind of a little bit of a mysterious group out there. They're the tough boys and the tough girls out there who, you don't always really know what they do, but you know that it's pretty intense stuff. And so this was a really interesting look into that world. And they do go into the filming of that car rollover in The Fall Guy. And just to show you like how much work was involved in getting it set up, finding a location, figuring out how exactly this is going to work, because this is a kind of a stunt that hasn't really been done before in this specific way. So it's got its own challenges. The previous record holder was Casino Royale, where I think it was Aston Martin, does like 7 or, I think it was 7 rolls that it does, right? In that one scene. And in this film, you don't see in the film itself, but they do the first take and the car it rolls like 4 times. Not good enough. So we'll set up, we'll do it again. They do it again. It doesn't even roll. It goes like end over end, right? Like head to tail. And it just doesn't work either. They try it again. And this time it's like, hey, we got to do it now. We can't keep doing this over and over. We're running out of time. And it works. And it's not only like, oh, we just got 7.5 rolls. We got 8 rolls. We got 8.5 rolls. That's a pretty big deal in that world, in that industry. And it's on film. It's documented. So you've got the title now. You're the one that has done it the best or the most or the longest. And that's an achievement in itself. And I think anybody who understands like how much work goes into a film, just a regular ass film, it's a lot of work. There's a lot of people involved. There's a lot of challenges you have to work through. And so to do something like this, like above and beyond anything anyone else has tried or been successful at, it's a great accomplishment, And I feel like that's where this film, The Fall Guy, I think it kind of cuts a little bit short the real work that stunt performers do. It's great that it's kind of highlighting the life or the danger or the maybe the sense of adventure of that industry, but show me the real challenges of it. And I think that is something that, I don't know, I think the fact that this character in this film does all of the stunts perfectly on the first try, I don't know. I really would have liked to see a little more of, this character working at it. But instead, of course, hey, look, there is a sense of fun about this movie, and it doesn't really just stick to a stunt man. It is about his sort of adventurous life and the kind of weird situations he finds himself in. Overall, I mean, I like Ryan Gosling, and I like his sense of humor. I like his ability to kind of be serious and also poke fun at that seriousness at the same time. It's a very distinct sort of wit and a style that he brings when he gets into like comedy mode. I don't know if I really see a lot of actors do that or have the ability to do that, but I don't know that the plot and the premise of this film is strong enough for this. I feel like maybe there's a little bit better version of this film that maybe takes the stunt work in the film a little more seriously. Because look, there's a moment in the film where Colt Seavers is talking to like a drug dealer or something, and the drug dealer says, "Oh, you're a stunt man, right? Like that's pretty crazy work or whatever." They give Oscars for that. And Colt Seavers, Ryan Gosling, he says, "Nope, they don't." And I think that's a way for this film and the filmmakers to say, hey, raising their hand, like, look, over here, look at us. We do hard work in the film industry. What's up? Can we get some shout outs? Can we get some flowers over here? And so if that's something that comes out of a film like this or a series of films like this that really push action and stunt work, that's great. These are people in the film industry that do some of the most dangerous work. I mean, I don't know if you even consider Tom Cruise a stuntman at this point. I guess you technically could, because he's the one really out there putting himself on the line, hanging off of airplanes and running on the side of buildings and all this stuff. So I think the fact that it hasn't really happened for whatever reason, I guess a film like this is important to point that out and to really showcase the work, which is great. I just think I really would have liked to see maybe a little bit of a different angle on this premise, I don't know. Maybe there's a day or another type of film that would do that. Funny enough, also, it's like Ryan Gosling in Drive years ago now also played a stuntman and also showed us a side of the work that is more serious and it is more dangerous. And, that film, of course, had other things to it. It wasn't about him being a stuntman. It's just, that's just what his character did. But it's almost like I would have liked to see that other part of that character's life. The character he played in Drive, who was a stuntman, who was doing the scenes, flipping the car and all that. I mean, outside of like the thing where he's in this relationship and he gets involved in this criminal undertaking or whatever, like what was happening with him right before Drive started? How did he, before he got into being a getaway driver, how did he get into the stunt work? Does he like it? What are the different types of stunts that he's done? I don't know. Maybe that's just me. Maybe that's my sensibilities. Like, I just want to see the same film from just a different angle, So anyway, that was an interesting film. I really wanted to like it. I had some hesitation because it's based on an old TV show. And I feel like, why would we do that? Let's just make an original film again. I kind of feel like we're done with reboots and all that. I think the idea that old TV show has so much, brand equity that audiences all around the world are going to recognize it. I don't really know that that's the case. I think people of a certain age, people probably in their mid to late 40s or older, will know what the Fall Guy is. Anybody younger than that? Yeah, you don't know what the Fall Guy is. You know this, but you don't know the original show. So what was really the point in capitalizing on that, Like, let's just make a new film. Let's call it something new. Just call the character some other name. That's all you need to do. And to even say, like, the music in the film, it strikes a weird balance. I mentioned Phil Collins and that particular song, Against All Odds. This film in general, just as like a running theme throughout, it's basically just a love letter to Kiss's I Was Made for Loving You, which I think for most Kiss fans, especially in that time, it was a little bit of a point of contention. It was kind of controversial because Kiss is a rock band, and they did a disco song. That's essentially what this is. I mean, there's even a film that came out many years ago, probably like 30 years ago, called Detroit Rock City. And it involved Kiss, and it was about these four kids that loved Kiss, and they were going to go see a Kiss concert. Personally, I think it's still a fun film to watch. But a joke in that film is that these four guys, they run into these other teenagers or young people. I don't know how old they all were, but there's the joke, the moment where someone says, man, Kiss will never make a disco song. So I just thought that was a weird choice. You know, I don't know that Kiss fans really necessarily champion that song, you know, out of their entire catalog. And people who aren't Kiss fans, maybe they just don't even know that that's a Kiss song. Okay, that's fine. It is catchy though. I'm not going to lie. It has been kind of kicking around in my head ever since I saw the film, right? So I don't know. It was a weird choice, but I think that maybe that's a David Leitch touch. You know, I feel like a lot of his films, if you kind of look and listen, there are some sort of strange and fun musical choices. You know, whether it's like Staying Alive in Bullet Train, or what was the song in Deadpool? Was it Angel in the Morning? No, that was the first one, I think. Anyway, so that's some thoughts on The Fall Guy. I don't know. Kind of mixed on it ultimately. But it does have me interested in I don't know if it's a genre, but that lane of films about films. You know, films about making films. And troubled productions and troubled performers, and, you know, whether it's a comedy or drama or whatever. I think that's something I'm going to look into. I'm going to kind of build a little bit of a selection of films like that. And we'll see what happens, you know? So, all right, that's it for me. That's it for this episode. Just wanted to talk about that for a little bit. In the meantime, hey, you want to hear some other episodes, go to filmstreak.com. You can subscribe there. You can sign up to get these by email. There's a link there that takes you to IMDb where I have a list of all of these films. Over 500 now. Can you believe it? Still got a lot more to go. But this at least gives you a place to check some of these films out, see what you think. Maybe you want to watch some of them. Maybe you want to rate them or add them to your watch list. And that's it, man. So in the meantime, I'm out of here. I'm going to go take a hike. And you know what? You know what to do. Come on. You go watch something.